greetings. Welcome, good morning. I am so happy to be here this morning and to host you. Thank you for allowing me to put on makeup this morning and dress up just for you all. Very excited to be here. Great. Okay, we're going to get started, and with a formal good morning all. Thank you to all of those who have joined us this morning. We are very excited to launch this series. And today's webinar will commence shortly after an introduction from my side. And I just want to again say welcome and good morning to those who have joined us. My name is Melanie Ramalho, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Director of South Africa and Africa, based in South Africa. This morning, we're very excited to be exploring the realities and possibilities of legal in the digital age. Well, we're looking at the impact of technological advancements on the legal profession and how it can be best prepared or prepare itself for a continued success within this increasingly digital world. This morning's webinar follows the December 2021 exciting launch that we had with Jeremy joining me into making this age happening for us. We launched it with and compiled it from a partnership that we have with LexisNexis South Africa and with the Legal Association and the Law Society of South Africa. Sorry, guys, just lost my words there for a second. With the Law Society of South Africa. And we're very excited that in December, we had a beautiful webinar, a real panelist talking about the results that we saw from that survey. Having been part of the State of the Legal Industry Address webinar in 2021, at which we launched the report findings, I'm especially excited to be part of this webinar series. I'll say it again, series, in which we unpack the key findings of the report and dive into what they mean for the legal industry. Previous research surveys were conducted in 2016 and prior to that in 2014, with the primary aim of contributing towards the development of the legal profession, using critical data and insights to shape the way forward. The research enables us to develop a review of legal practice in South Africa and to monitor significant changes and notable trends. This year's key findings include the impact of COVID-19 on the profession, the impact of legal technology on legal practice, demographic data around race, gender, and transformation within the field, as well as an expansion into other African territories. Very exciting, very close to my heart as well. If you have not yet viewed the initial discussion around some of the key findings of the latest survey, don't worry. As an attendee today, you will receive an email from us in due course with links to watch the State of Legal Industry Address and to download the report. So we've got you. I'd like to introduce a short poll on screen now that will pop up. Give it a few seconds. And please do me the honor of completing this poll for us, a short one with a few questions, very easy to answer while I continue on this morning with the introduction. I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to the LSSA Law Society of South Africa. We are proud to partner with them on these important research exercises. For us, as a data-driven legal technology company, it is critical that we understand our clients' needs and are able to not only meet their demands, but predict them. Not just from a service delivery point of view, but also from a perspective of collaboration. LexisNexis works in synergy with our customers and that can only be made possible if we come from a place of deep understanding. We see ourselves as more than a service provider, but instead as a trusted partner and a source of credible and reliable information. But even more than that, we're committed to supporting and partnering with the legal profession to advance the rule of law. Everything that we do as a business advances the rule of law around the world. And this research is a way of us understanding the needs of the very custodians of the rule of law, whom we serve and are proud to serve. Off the back of this insightful research, the Law Society of South Africa and LexisNexis are now rolling out the State of Legal Industry Address webinar series with monthly webinars unpacking some of the critical shifts taking place within the legal sector, as reflected in the Legal Tech Report 2021-2022. Today is the first webinar in the series, and we are certainly hope you will join us over the next few months as we look closer at some of other key findings. How exciting, just deep diving and sharing the deep understanding of these results. Just before we begin, a bit of housekeeping. Of course, we have to have housekeeping. You can send your questions for our panelists using the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. We'll get to those later in the program. We'll also give you the poll results later when Jeremy comes on. Please reserve the chat box for general comments that are not questions you specifically like our expert speakers to respond to. The webinar recording will be made available to all delegates a few days after the session via the email you registered with. And please keep the comments civil and focused on the topics under discussion today. Now, moving on to the topic for today. We all know the technology of the 21st century has given us many technical wonders that continue to impact every field and profession. The Legal Tech Report showed a clear leaning toward investment in technology, with nearly a third of firms surveyed having already invested heavily in processes and technology, and another third planning to do so in the next 1 to 2 years. Ponder on that one. More and more legal professionals are now using digital channels to source information, manage matters, network with peers, and communicate with clients. And with no further ado, let's get straight into unpacking some of this. To assist us in facilitating these discussions this morning, it is my great pleasure and honor now to introduce Jeremy Maggs, media specialist and consultant. Jeremy has close on 40 years experience in television, radio, and print. Until recently, he hosted television news channel ENCA's weekday lunchtime news program before stepping down in early 2021 to co-found a strategy and reputation management enterprise. Jeremy, over to you.
Mel, thank you very much indeed. And to all the participants today who are joining us, thank you so much indeed. I wish you wouldn't reference 40 years experience. It makes me feel very old sometimes. I will reference the results of our first poll for you in just a moment, but I want to get to our panel members as quickly as possible. But I thought I might begin this conversation just referencing a very brief conversation I had with a friend of mine last night who's in the legal profession. He's an advocate, and I mentioned to him that I was going to be involved in today's process. And he said to me very simply, if you're not tech-enabled, Jeremy, you're not succeeding. That goes for my business. Now let me reference an opinion piece that came out of LexisNexis towards the end of last year. I'll read you a few excerpts saying essentially that technology is changing the face of law practice. One prediction is by the end of last year, 85% of customer interactions would be managed without human beings. Firms, said the report, are embracing technology, embracing artificial intelligence to heighten efficiency, including improving client experience. Technology is already improving access to the rule of law, which is absolutely critical. And I hope that some of that informs our discussion today. I want to introduce our three panelists to you. First of all, the Chief Information Officer at LexisNexis South Africa, Terence Naidu. A very good morning to you. I'll get to you in just a moment. Alongside Advocate Romeo Ntambaleni, representing the South African Bar Association. Advocate, welcome to you as well. And also Professor Sizwe Snail, representing the Law Society of South Africa and as chairperson of the LSSA E-Law Committee. So you could not ask for a better group of experts. We will also add another poll during the conversation at some point in the hour and 15 minutes that we've got today, and I will keep a very close eye on the question box as well. Terence, let me dive straight in with you. Good morning to you, and let me ask you this question. In your experience then, how is technology helping lawyers in decision support? How advanced is the enablement?
Hey, Jeremy, that's a great question. In terms of how technology is actually helping, and I'm glad with your intro. I mean, you mentioned there are these new ways of working, and especially at this digital age, we in the era of the fourth industrial revolution, and in this era, it's about just gaining the competitive advantage. So in terms of law firms, I mean, what are the benefits that these tools will offer in terms of decision support? What it will do, it will enhance their outcomes, it will improve their accuracy, increase productivity, it saves them time and cost and gives them quick access to information. And also it's about streamlining the actual processes. So I think you're 100% right. In this day and age, in terms of being technology like in fact enabled, you need to grab every inch and ounce of tech you can get that will give you that leading edge and that competitive advantage where you can really create great outcomes for the clients you service.
You talk about grabbing every inch, and I think that is absolutely critical. But I also just want to reference the early results in our poll that Mel just put up. And the question was, or one of the questions, how reliant are you on technology in your professional space, Terence? And only 68% saying very reliant, 27% saying somewhat reliant. That tells me that there is still a gap that needs to be taken by the profession. Am I correct?
Yes, you are right, Jeremy. If I had to answer the question slightly differently about what my views are, if you go back maybe 15 years, and I recall whenever you look for an employment, they asked you what was your proficiency in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And you find as we evolve, that's no longer a question because it's become part of your tool set, which you have to be successful in business. So I think going forward, what we need to make sure is that people, like I said, are actually gravitating towards it. It becomes part of their skills. It's not just the experience and the knowledge they have, but actually using these tools to drive better results for their customers. So it's an evolution. I think that 68% will end up being 100% in the next 3 to 4 years. And it's also depends on the type of era you were born in. So you find the younger generation are more tech savvy. They gravitate, you find towards technology, and they'll be demanding more of us in terms of technology tools that enables them.
Terence, let's not reference tech savvy in the younger generation too much, if you don't mind. It's making me feel very sad and uncomfortable. What you do say, though, is that better embracing of technology will lead to better results. Is this
Correct.
about predictive analysis?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, Jeremy, if you look at where the industry is going, and it's like it's a global trend. I mean, what people are looking for is smart content and like smart, in fact, workflows. They want these intelligent workflows that drive these results. So when I say smart content, you find if you look at most systems, when you look at it traditionally, it's search and retrieval. But if I use a simple example, like for example, Google, if you went and typed in what's the weather in Durban or in Johannesburg, it gives you a result. So that is smart content. So it's helping you and it's predicting, etc., and the whole weather pattern and the forecast. So with smart content, it gives lots of professionals the advantage of driving analytics, and that's the basis for like predictions. So what we do here at LexisNexis, we build these machine learning models and we analyze lots of case law. We take huge amounts of big data and we crunch them. And the offset of these machine learning models, they actually establish patterns like within the data. So what we're targeting in our vision is to say, at some point in time, we can identify these patterns that will help our lawyer market to say, how would a judge rule if these arguments were actually presented? So that would give our clients the opportunity to better prepare for their cases, to say, based on X arguments, this is what would happen. Like another example would be, we have expert witnesses. And if we analyzed all the expert witnesses within our case law, you could be able to tell which expert witnesses have better results. So you can predict which experts you should be using as part of your what you call defense strategy. So I think prediction is going to become a key thing going forward as the data and as the crunching of the data and the compiling of the data, and those get more and more sophisticated, you will find those models will become far more accurate in terms of the prediction of an outcome of an event, a judgment, it's like etc.
I'm going to get to our next two panelists in just a moment, but Terence, very quickly, organizations then, or legal organizations, law firms, how do they approach investment in technology? Where's the starting point here? How do you prioritize this?
So it depends on the business priorities. If you find the investment is like around automation, you want to drive these investments in like efficiencies, then you certainly will have to invest in like smart documents where it fabricates documents and it provides answers, etc. If you're looking at content systems, you need to invest in a sort of knowledge management system that way you can quickly and easily access information and get the right results at the right time. So what we are trying to do at LexisNexis is actually provide those services. And part of the plethora of products we've built is actually designed, it's like around that. So law firms don't have to make these significant investments in terms of the skills, the experience, and the actual technology. All they need to do is leverage what we are building and take advantage of that.
Terence, stand by. I'm going to get back to you in just a moment. Let me bring into our conversation our Professor Sizwe Snail, Senior Partner at Snail Attorneys at Law, today wearing your Law Society of South Africa hat. Professor, good morning to you and a very warm welcome. Terence, in his opening remarks, spoke about the importance of the law profession becoming tech savvy, and obviously the younger the person, the more tech savvy they are likely to be. What can you tell us about tech readiness of law students at university? But Professor, perhaps more importantly, where are the deficiencies in that respect?
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for that question. I think in the last 5 to 6 years, there's definitely been a movement towards making sure that ICT law in particular, or cyber law as we call it, is part of the LLB curriculum. Some of the universities have they've ensured that happens now, and that there is some form of legal tech readiness with those LLB students, but some universities are still lagging behind. So I think with the advent of COVID-19. And the fact that now we are forced to actually teach using Teams and Zoom and all these electronic methods, tech readiness is not a like-have, it's a must-have. And I think it is very important to ensure at universities that by the time the students leave the university, that they know that technology is an integral part of them working as an attorney.
Professor, can I ask you a very basic question? In your definition then, within the legal parameters that you've just referenced, what exactly is tech readiness?
I think tech readiness refers to using technology to make life easier as a legal professional. Okay, in other words, embracing technology to change some of the processes which we, in the traditional sense as attorneys, would be doing maybe in a longer space of time. You can now do those in a shorter space of time. In terms of collaborating with your team, you can use technology to be in contact with your office, wherever you are in the world, share files, prepare documents, review documents. It has really enabled the life of a lawyer to be so nice. I mean, I always say, no matter where I am in the world, my particular info address for my law firm, that always comes to me. So I could be in Hong Kong, I could be in Swaziland, I could be in France. I always know what is happening at the law firm in terms of that email address. So embracing technology is, like I said, it's not a like-have, it's a must-have. In terms of storing your files, you know, in the olden days, you'd have to have additional space to store files. These days, we can scan files and so forth.
Professor, does better technology or better automation lead to better research, which then has a better potential outcome for the client?
I think using technology for research purposes, I think that has really made life much, much easier. I remember in about 10 years ago, if you wanted to do decent research, you would have to go to the library. And I remember at that time, you'd use Westlaw. LexisNexis also had introduced their own journals. I remember doing my scriptsy, my dissertation at Tux. And at the time, it was really a novelty, you know. But now, in 2022, we have things like Turnitin. If you send us a research paper, we have technology that checks for technological integrity, academic integrity, to ensure that you haven't used automated methods to embellish or to plagiarize other people's information. So technology really helps us to get decent sources, proper sources, primary sources, and not necessarily secondary sources to ensure that the quality of the research that we do is much better. So from that perspective, I think it has really assisted research to literally leapfrog, because, you know, research was something for the boring guys, the guys that go to the library. But now research is for everyone. You know, as long as you have a computer, as long as you can get online, and you are tasked with doing research, you will have to do so.
Professor, the library has always been my happy space, but we don't need to talk about that right now. There are a couple of issues that are starting to emerge, and when we get to the broader discussion, I will touch on them. One is the issue of privacy. The other is the issue of access to technology, particularly in a country like South Africa, Professor, which is so economically disparate. And then also artificial intelligence making the legal profession more dependent on technology. Those are just some of the issues that I want to look at. I'm also keeping an eye on our Q&A box. Kimberly Eckstein, I do recognize you in terms of your question about ESG. We'll get to that in just a moment. And also Mr. Nsaluba I've looked at your question as well. I will get to that a little later. Please keep those questions coming into the question box, and I will keep my eye out for another poll that we will run in this webinar as well. But right now, let me bring into the conversation Advocate Romeo Ntambaleni, experienced senior advocate with a keen interest in technology law. Advocate, a very warm welcome to you. What impact has technology had on your echelon of the legal profession? Where is it helping, and what more can be done, sir?
All right, thank you very much, Jeremy. I think with us at Advocates, we take it very slow. In terms of the poll that was done on the legal tech, you can see that the graph is not balancing in relation to the reception from the generation of advocates. But I believe that now, as Professor Snail has said, it's for everyone to actually embrace this platform for our actual own development, because the benefit with us is that now in Gauteng we've got court online and also case line, that all of us were actually forced due to COVID to use case online. So I think that, Jeremy, helped quite a lot to actually bring us on board so that we'll be able to embrace the use of technology to our advantage and also on our work with our cases.
You are a vital component, advocate of the legal profession. How do you accelerate the process within your community, given that you've told us inherently you perhaps are a little slower than other segments of the profession to embrace technology?
Yeah, I'm happy that with the courses that were introduced by the Legal Practice Council of South Africa, specific with advocates, there's a course called ITC, which is actually helping the new advocates, which are new coming advocates, to actually embrace technology in their work as advocates. So that course helps quite a lot to actually expose advocates and their work in terms of what they need to do tech-wise. So that course is very critical, and it's of critical importance that the Legal Practice Council of South Africa has introduced it for new advocates that are being trained, which I'm currently teaching, and I'm happy to report that some of these pupils are on the platform today to come and experience for themselves, firsthand the benefits of using technology in their practice to actually enhance their practice as well, Jeremy. And I think what is quite important as well is the opening of the spectrum by government will also assist in actually dealing with the issue of speed and facilitating the internet access in South Africa. I think that is very of critical importance, because there was an issue relating to digital migration, and South Africa was lagging behind with other African countries, by the way, in the world. When we compare ourselves to Rwanda in terms of digital migration, Jeremy, Rwanda is way ahead of us. So when the spectrum was opened and the minister announced it this week, I was quite happy to see that it's a positive development in relation to internet and the access of technology for all of us.
One of our participants today, Advocate, is Gift Ndlovu. And Gift, I'm going to thank you for your question. And Advocate Ntambaleni, I'm going to put it to you, but also to my other two panel members, because I think it applies to all of you. And this is the question, Advocate, very simply. It's a clever question. Is technology making things easier for clients more than lawyers, or vice versa? Clients, says Gift, consult less due to the fact that so much information is online. I might take that question a little further. And is this leading to some degree of consultative redundancy when it comes to the law profession, given that often the information that I want is simply at the end of my mouse?
Yeah.
Good question, Gift.
Yeah, it's definitely a good question, Jeremy. You must remember that traditionally, lawyers work by billing, and they charge what we refer to as billable hours. So the lesser you shrink the time, for billable hours, the more it will impact on how the fees are charged by the lawyers. So it's for me, I think it's quite the benefit for both parties, because in relation to a lawyer who's doing consultation, the more shorter time turnaround, as Professor Snail has said, you have with your consultation, the more clients you can actually consult. You might look at it on a downside to say that, I'm having shorter times to consult, but at the end of the day, if I used to consult 5, I can do 10, due to the technology and how I'm actually doing it. And Jeremy, I can consult with the client who's in Cape Town while sitting in Johannesburg. I don't need to travel and incur more costs, and then we can do it. That will be for definitely for the benefits of of the clients, and also for the benefits of practitioners as well. Thank you very much.
Advocate, I'll get back to you in just a moment. Professor, I've watched you nodding your head as the advocate has been talking. So on that balance, or on that fulcrum of benefit, when it comes to client or the legal profession, with the greater adoption of technology, who stands to win more, do you think?
I think both parties stand to win. And as correctly said, someone who steps into your online office, who is informed, who has maybe read 1 or 2 things, read 1 or 2 cases, there may be an irritating client in the sense that they think they know the law already, but it will assist in you explaining to them in a much more quicker time what the legal position is. I mean, it goes back to the old position to say anyone can read the law, anyone can read legislation, anyone can read case law, but you still need to go to university, you still need to do your PLT to understand how the mechanics of the law work. And that is where we as professionals come in. We render a service to make sure that the mechanics of the law and the understanding of the law are done properly. So technology definitely a benefit for clients and for us as well as practitioners. One must just be a little bit careful from overusing technology, because when you overuse technology, you then also end up having processes that you didn't think you would have because you've too technologized the process. But in essence, technology is definitely a win-win for everybody.
I remember, Prof, talking to a doctor friend of mine who said he always gets very nervous when a patient walks in and has been consulting WebMD, because he knows he's got a lot of work to do in that respect. Terence, let me come back to you. I do want to move on, but very simply, that question that Gift and Glover raised about the benefit to the client and to the and to the law firm itself, or to the lawyer themselves. It is a question of beneficiation to both. Both the previous commentators were right, weren't they?
Yeah, I'll just like to add something very short there, Jeremy, is that you find with the technology involved, it creates the opportunity for the lawyer itself or the practicing person to then start opening up channels to more different practice areas, because technology is now giving you the ability to extend your coverage. It's like we have a product which is called Practical Guidance, and in there we've got technology which covers, and the content which covers various different practice areas. So where you might see your billable hours go shorter, or smaller, like in some areas, but you could very easily with technology start to expand your business and grow your business by starting to litigate or give advice on different practice areas. So you can become a far bigger practice by offering more services. And there is technologies, which LexisNexis has already, that will allow our lawyers, whether you're a startup or a medium enterprise, to expand your business so that you can start to consult like in different areas. And then the other point, Jeremy, is that there is a trend which is happening about billable hours. Is it the right thing or the wrong thing? And there will be at some point where different models will have to be incorporated. Is it a fixed term contract for a case, etc.? So it's things like that which the professional market will need to start thinking about, is that, do we change from billable to fixed? Because remember, you've made an investment in technology. That will be a cost as part of that, and you can recharge that cost. So I think there's 2 things. One, to grow the practice, great. And we have products like Practical Guidance that can that can help you and they can just.
Terence, thank you very much indeed. Gentlemen, I want to pivot the conversation, if I can, to something which I think is critical, and that's the impact of technology on privacy. It's a bargain basement question, but it's one that will affect anyone. Is there a compromise when there is too much adoption? Terence, back to you, then Professor Snail, then Advocate Ntambaleni. Terence, just a quick view from you, please.
Yeah, quick one. I mean, there's lots of legislation out there now. So there's ISO standards, there's SOX, there's, to what Professor mentioned, they're now doing cybersecurity, etc. So as part of the whole process is that we need to act with integrity to make sure that the information is actually protected. And laws are now actually governing that, and there's serious repercussions for that. So I think privacy is always a concern. You have some bad rogues out there which are looking to compromise data. But if you put in the right safeguards, I don't think it's an issue. So you need to use technology to also protect that data at the same time.
Professor Snail, do you have a view on this? The whole notion of the protection of information is critical, because if it doesn't happen, then it impacts on the integrity and the credibility of the profession. I fully understand what Terence Naidu was saying, but this is something that the legal profession has got to keep up to date with all the time. Otherwise, the consequences are just too awful to contemplate.
Yeah, I think, ethically speaking, our ethics require us to always keep confidentiality of our clients' information. And the law, interestingly enough, the protection of personal information, here, as early as 2013, has now gone a step further to ensure that our personal information, whether in the digital space or in the bricks and mortar world, that is respected. So, technology can make things easier in terms of protecting our personal information, keeping it secure. It can also result, however, in breaches, security breaches, and dissemination of information that shouldn't be there. So, for me, the use of technology and privacy is always a two-way street. One is very beneficial in that you can use large sums of information and process them, but on the other hand, your positive duty to keep that information safe and to ensure that it does not go into the wrong hands always increases. So, and very important, and I think this is something that people don't know, the POPIA actually has a provision that talks about that a person should not be subjected to automated decision-making. Now, it sounds like a big term, but what it means that whoever is keeping personal information of yourself does not have the liberty to make decisions about you based on the information that they have using automatic processes. So, automation to some extent, very good, very progressive, but in terms of taking decisions about people, the automated decision-making is expressly excluded in the POPIA. I hope that sheds some light.
It does shed some light, and Deline Clark, who is one of our participants today, raises a wonderful question about automated decision-making and the hybrid model, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. But Advocate Ntambaleni, let me come to you just in terms of privacy and the protection of information. We know the debate well, but the more that this particular issue accelerates, the more careful we have to be.
Yeah, now I think there's an overarching legislation, being the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which guarantees the right to privacy. And Prof. Snail speaks about POPIA and its protection on personal information. I think that those are two important pieces of legislation. And as Professor Snail has said, we need to actually develop quite quicker, because the technology is moving quite ahead of us in terms of practical cases that we're experiencing on a daily basis. So I think the position is, as Professor Snail has put it, the protection of personal information is important, and it covers the whole area. resting on the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. I think that's how far we can actually take it.
You talk about having to develop quicker. In what respect, Advocate?
In terms of the legislations being implemented, last year there was a hack that happened at the office of the Master of the High Court, and certain information was actually compromised. So I think there was. I'm not sure whether it was reported with the information regulator and how they actually handled the whole preservation of information of users in terms of the protection and how you interact with a technological space within the regulated sphere and space. I think that is very much important, and that's why I'm saying it must be harnessed together, developed with the law to be able to assist and protect the users, basically.
Advocate, I wonder if you'd like to take a stab at this question from Delene Clark. We were talking about automated decision making just a moment or two ago. She writes that while tech is a wonderful tool and can enhance efficiency and reduce cost, the human factor should not be discounted. Particularly, she goes on to say, in family matters, the trauma may be exaggerated or exacerbated, I beg your pardon, exacerbated by only engaging with AI, artificial intelligence. In the law, the human factor remains paramount, surely.
Absolutely. In the US, when Legal Geek came into the space, people thought that lawyers will become obsolete and there will not be people that will be consulting with lawyers to get their contracts done. And that showed that that is not actually the case. And what needs to happen is that you are not going to remove the element of a lawyer in terms of helping you to actually interpret the law. And the courts have actually done that in terms of family law matters and matters where privacy of participant has to be protected. The court actually goes the long way to actually make sure that that protection is offered to the people that are vulnerable by either blacking out the details of the people in terms of matters and putting maybe children in specific room if they are testifying using video technology in court. So the court also is not lagging behind. They're developing with technology so that they can be able to enhance technology, also protecting the participants who are members of the public and the rights that are protected in the Constitution being protected as well. So there's no way that you're going to remove the human element, even with the advancement of technology in assisting, so that there will be order and respect of the rule of law. I think that is important.
I think that is a key question. Terence Naidoo, you're the Chief Technology Officer here at LexisNexis, but you will agree that the human factor does still play a role. It's a question of achieving maximum symbiosis, I imagine.
Yeah. When we build these models, it's about prediction, and in there is an accuracy rating. So, and it depends on the volume of data. So at any point in time, it is a prediction and it is a guideline. It is never saying this is how you should be acting. So based on the patterns of data we've seen, it gives you a estimated sense of accuracy. And it's always left to the human at the end to make that final decision. Where the technology comes in, it's crunching all the data and the historical data, like to give you some insight into what the model has said, that this is what we think the outcome would be. And then the human needs to take that to say, how do I approach it based on the data I'm seeing? So it's a prediction, it's an assumption, it's the level of accuracy based on confidence of the data that it's actually described.
Terence, thank you. Professor Snell, back to you. I'm very happy if you want to wade in on the human factor, if you can, but I also want to open this conversation up now as we start to approach 10 minutes to the hour about the lack of access to technology in South Africa. And it's an important question, and it's a very blunt question, particularly in a country like South Africa, where we have a very high Gini coefficient. Does a lack of access, Professor, mean that, or lack of access to technology, mean that people are denied better access to justice? How do we get our heads around that?
That's a very interesting question about access to information and how access to information affects access to justice and other services that the state must give to individuals. You know, but focusing on access to justice, you know, it is a constitutional right to have access to information. And not too long ago, I think I wrote a piece in the Maverick where I said that this right to access to information now actually relates now even to the right to have data. If you look at other jurisdictions in Europe and in the Americas, every household has a basic you know, amount of data that they can use to access the internet, to get their e-services, to get their e-justice, to get whatever electronic services that you want as an individual, be it educational services and so forth. So for me, creating access to information, access to data, access to technology is definitely a step in the right direction in furthering the provision of e-justice services as well as the professional services of attorneys. I hope that's not a mouthful.
Prof, it's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm going to come right back at you and say that it's also a constitutional right in South Africa for people to have clean water, and yet many don't. My question to you was, does a lack of access to technology mean that people are denied better access and legal representation? That's the question. And conventional wisdom would suggest that that is the case.
Yes, I do think so. And I think it links back to what I said to you earlier on, that in 2022, by the time a client consults with you, they've already read 20, 30 articles on the internet.
Yeah.
And they are informed about what they will be consulting with you about. So it has clarified things. It has made access to justice even more accessible. Even the fact that, you know, when a client comes to see you, they can listen to you and they can quickly go online and they can get 2 or 3 different opinions on the same issue, you know, without necessarily going to consult. So I think technology has definitely enabled, and lack of technology or lack of access to information is definitely stifling that progress.
Advocate Ntambeleni, what is your view? I suspect you might have a similar view to the professor. So my question would be, how do you close the gap?
I think I have the same view with the professor. I think we have seen that the government has indicated that they're going to give 10 gigs to families. I think that is something that is going to happen in the future. But we can see that the companies that are in that space that makes business of actually selling data are not happy about the proposal. But it speaks to the very same issues that we are talking about, that the moment you deny data to people now, you are actually denying them the right to be able to have access to to justice, because courts are moving on the online platforms as well. So the more you open it up and allow people to have data and have space to actually use it, then it will be much, much better also as well. And it goes without saying that should actually happen in the future. But you will ask a question now, Jeremy, to say, with the kind of challenges that we have with electricity and all this, how is this not going to actually affect us? It affects us quite a lot. And when we deal with technology, it's the very same debate, Jeremy, of either fossil fuel or coal. Other people will tell you, we want to go to a real court. We want to face the judge. We want to see the witnesses and how they testify. And others will tell you, let's have a branded model. Let's have a hybrid, so that we can be able to use technology to our benefit. So as far as we can start opening up the spectrum and have people accessing data, it will definitely improve the lives of the public in general, and they have the better relationship with the internet platforms.
Advocate, the longer this debate continues, the wider surely the gap becomes, as more people have access to data and even more people are just falling behind the curve. And that creates a very dangerous imbalance, surely, within the judicial system in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. But I believe that, as you have said, when you were giving an example with the poll there, that I think we will start with an imbalance, moving into a balance. Because at the end of the day, if you are not going to move, the technology will actually make you to actually move. We'll give an example. Previously, Jeremy, I used to go to the stores to buy a CD. Now music is on online platforms. Whether I like it or not, I have to go on an online platform and then stream those music. Artists will tell you 10 years ago that won't work at all. But now they are forced to migrate into that kind of space. So us, as well as lawyers, and having this kind of debates, Jeremy, the better we move, as you said, your colleague, your friend who is an advocate said, the better we move, the faster for us to be able to embrace this atmosphere and use it for our benefit.
If you're not tech enabled, I was told, you're not succeeding. Advocate Ntambaleni, by the way, it's also great to listen to music on vinyl these days. You don't necessarily need a CD. I just thought I'd throw that into the conversation. Terence Naidu, let me come back to you from LexisNexis. You're the chief technology officer at the organization. How do you think that justice is being denied the wider that gap remains? And perhaps more importantly, from a professional company in this space, what do we need to start doing to close that gap?
Yeah, I think I agree with both my colleagues. Like the cost and the access of data is quite significant in our country, and that's something which hopefully the new spectrum will actually help out. But I read a very interesting article, which was a bit of a different spin on things. Instead of giving 10 gigs, rather go and sort of what's the word, zero rate, get data like across key sites, like, for example, government institutions and access to these forums. We should allow people to access that at no charge. So that's an option we can actually go with, where companies like us or various institutional bodies that provide the right relevant content that upholds the rule of law and enhances our society, those sites should be zero rated, and government should be making an effort around working with those partners to make that happen. And I think if that happens, it'd be great. And to my advocate's example, if you gave a normal citizen 10 gigs of data, I'm pretty sure they'd be using that to stream music, and do you really want them to use it for music or for upholding the rule of law? So it's that whole dilemma. I mean, is it being used in the right way and fashion? But I do agree that the cost is very high, but there are different ways we could attack the problem through, for example, zero rating. I mean, the article was a beautiful article the person wrote. I mean, giving people access to the right information, relevant information that is really going to uplift their lives. I think that's the way we should be going.
Professor Snell, back to you, and just leading on from what Terence has said, and again, I'll bring participant Delene Clark back into the conversation. Delene, thanks for the question. A view on this, she says, and Terence has already raised it, are we looking at zero rating data from the client side once an attorney has been retained? She goes on to say, after all, they will be billed. Maybe that's the solution, that the legal profession takes the hit. I don't know.
You know what? It sounds like a ingenuity where you could service your client and provide your client with the data and so forth. I don't see that happening anytime soon, because at the end of the day, it is important to note that technology is not here to replace us. It's not here to replace our duties to still go and see your lawyer and still to go call your lawyer. I mean, I remember my first principal, he used to say to me, people go to lawyers, lawyers don't go to people. So once we start providing access to data and stuff, we are now going to people, but we'll leave it at that.
Another question, and Advocate Ntambaleni, this might be one right up your street, and this is from Goodman Chigomba. Goodman, thank you very much for the question. It's back to the pace, advocate, and speed of readiness. And he says, what measures can be put in place to ensure that judges and lawyers are on the same level when it comes to tech readiness? Judges and lawyers. So we've addressed the issue at student level. We've spoken about attorneys and advocates, but what about the bench?
Yeah, look, Jeremy, it's good that I've recently acted in the Pretoria High Court. And when I went there, I was of the view that I was going to get a file and I'm going to get a big pile, case piles that I must bring back at home to read so that I can be able to give my judgments. But we had already migrated to case lines, and we were using case lines to actually do our work. And I found case lines to be so helpful as a judge in terms of how I read my cases, how I can be able to make my notes, and how I'm able to upskill and contact the parties in real time and sending them messages about things that I've picked up. So for me, that was very, very quite critical. And judges are embracing it, especially here in Gauteng, to actually work on case lines, and they can work remotely, not actually coming to court. We have reduced coming to court for bare necessities. If ever there's issues relating to evidence, that you have to apply and give reasons why you really, really need to go to trial and bring evidence in court. In an ordinary way of going to court and calling your witnesses, but case line system for judges is a win-win situation, and there are continuous trainings that they are always giving us, Jeremy, in terms of how to upscale on case line, how to use the digital platforms as judges in South Africa. So that is very, very much important, and I'm in love with it.
I'm glad to hear that. One of our other participants, Nandipa and Saluba. Nandipa, you've written a lot of questions to us around the same issue, and I'm going to try and paraphrase them if I can. And I'm glad I'm not having to answer this one. I'm going to throw this one straight at Terence and Prof. Snail. But Professor, to you first of all, Nandipa says, would the jurisdictional issues that are part of law of procedure not have to be reconsidered now that we're in the global village where legal practitioners and their IP addresses are situated in the virtual space? In fact, he's saying technological enablement is creating a less jurisdictional bound space for legal practitioners. Nandipa, I hope I'm paraphrasing correctly. Prof, are you getting the sense here? I think what he's effectively talking about is the breaking down of barriers within the global legal village and whether that changes the legal paradigm. It's a really smart question.
You know what? I have a very beautiful answer for that. Our South African courts have developed the concept of substituted service, right? So in terms of substituted service, you can now serve someone documents of court without using the sheriff. Now you're going to say to me, but what does that have to do with jurisdiction? It has a lot to do with jurisdiction. In 2 or 3 matters that I've done against 1 or 2 foreign social media companies, and I'm not going to mention them by name because the matters are sub judice, we have actually managed to force those foreign social media companies to subject themselves to South African law due to the fact that they are doing business in South Africa. So, the whole issue of we are in America, we are not going to listen to the South African law, those days are long gone. You go to court now, you bring an application for substituted service, you do it by way of email, and if the foreign peregrini knows what's good for themselves, they will see to it that they reply to the South African court papers. So yes, it has definitely broken jurisdictional boundaries, and it has really assisted in getting relief for clients against foreign peregrini in many instances.
I'm just wondering if I can ask our tech team to put up our second and final poll as we start to come to the end of this conversation. But Professor Snail, to you, I heard a lovely description for that the other day. Someone was referring to the Amazonification of the world. And I think while it's very difficult to spell, I think that kind of sums up exactly what you're saying. Here's our second poll, folks, and you can start replying now, and we'll close out our conversation with this. In effect, which LexisNexis technological solutions would you like to be contacted about? You have 4 options there. I'm hoping that you won't go for option 4, but legal citator, Lexis Check, or Lexis Deceased Estates. If you wouldn't mind voting on that for me very, very quickly, and I'll bring you those results in just a moment. And the reason why we're doing this, everybody, it helps us point the needle in the right direction as far as client service is concerned. So it gives us a sense of priority and what is important. So we'd be very grateful for as many of our participants to vote in that as possible. Terence Naidu, in conclusion, it's always good to be future focused and future fit. As someone who's in the belly of the beast here, someone who is developing the modeling, what are you looking at over the next year or two? What's occupying your mind?
Yeah, so for us at LexisNexis and myself personally, I mean, the vision, it's a matter of an evolution over time. And if you look at where we came from, was more of a research, which was search and retrieve. What we want to do is have more smarter content, smarter workflows, and create a platform and a legal ecosystem so where people can actually thrive off. So where we have B2B and B2C models. So having all the tools that people could use and leverage off the golden data we have and these golden workflows to build ecosystems offering new products. And the big challenge there, or not the vision there, is that it's all there to uphold the rule of law, and you find uphold like society. So we've been constructing this business, reconstructing the business over the last couple of years. We've structured it in a way that we have research solutions, workflow, and risk and compliance. And we're going to start merging this to create this platform ecosystem that really gives the end user the ability to complete the jobs they want to do. And that we truly believe will start to really play a pivotal role in the lawyer space, in the market. And like I said, always upholding the rule of law and improving society.
Terence, thank you very much indeed. I will take that as your final remarks, Chief Technology Officer here at LexisNexis South Africa. Prof, to you with some closing remarks, and let me preface it by putting this to you. The challenge now is for the legal profession, for law firms, to take the next step, which is to use technology to stay ahead of the curve and to grow value. What do you believe the next step is, Professor?
I think the next step is to embrace technology. And I think, one must look at technology in a very media neutral way. There are so many different solutions out there that can really assist you in making your life easier. And the quicker we embrace these solutions as practitioners, the more profit we'll be able to make in terms of our billable hours, the more efficient we'll be able to work for our clients, do more decent research instead of just going maybe to a free case law website and using that, spend a couple of rands and get some solutions, some tech solutions into your office to assist you with running your practice more efficiently. Just going back to what Advocate Romeo said, even with the courts, I mean, when I initially heard of case lines and online courts, I was like, oh, but how's this going to work? But I can guarantee you, it is so much nicer now being in the unopposed motion role electronically. You'll be done by 1 o'clock, then sitting in the High Court until 4:30 and having the High Court, the motion role being disposed of a couple of days. So I think lawyers must step up. Lawyers must spend a couple of bucks and get their firms up to scratch. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Professor. If only that experience that you've just outlined also applied to getting your driver's license, but we don't need to go there. That's a very dangerous place to go. Advocate Tambaleni, I'm going to give you the final word. And I'm going to say to you, sir, that in a world where everything is changing, not day by day, but hour by hour, minute by minute, I guess the biggest risk to the law profession is standing still, doing nothing at all.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that statement, Jeremy. And for me, it was quite sad, to see during the course of this week that we were supposed to launch our online service in terms of servicing of documents without actually approaching court. That's very, very much important. And it also removes the element of corruption out of the system when you are serving online without interacting with a lot of people. And that was postponed sine die until further notice. And then our acting judge president has indicated that there were challenges in terms of launching that. So as Professor Snell has said, the sooner we accept this, the better for all of us, because either you're talking in sports, you're talking, Jeremy, VAR, the referees are no longer working alone. The system is being introduced to actually assist them in delivering what is the best result. Whether it's a correct decision or not is a debate for another day. So we are looking into that. In cars, you're talking about electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. There will be people that will tell you that I will never drive an electric vehicle. I want a hybrid. So let's embrace these systems. It is going to help us for the better, so that technology will be here to be able to assist us moving forward and develop the profession at all, and so that we can move ahead of the curve in time.
Advocate Tambaleni, thank you very much indeed, also to Professor Snell and to Terence Naidu. Folks, we've done our best to raise some of the big issues, to answer as many of the questions as possible in the time allocated. I always say that sessions like this are never going to solve all the problems. The best that we can hope for is that we can open some new lines of thought and engagement. And if we've done that in the past hour, I think that we have done our job. So to our three panel members, thank you for your time. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your wisdom. It has certainly been stimulating and challenging. I want to hand over now to Desigan Naidu, Software Development Manager here at LexisNexis, to share a few words in closing. And let me thank you for letting us onto your computer screens this morning. It has been a great pleasure. Desigan, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you so much to our panelists for the insights this morning, and to Jeremy Maggs for facilitating the discussion. There's some great nuggets shared by all of you. We trust that our attendees enjoyed this morning's discussion, unpacking legal in the digital age. As a software development manager myself, tech is what makes me tick. It was really interesting to hear some of the perspectives of the very people we serve about the impact of tech shifts on their practice in the field. Terence shared that as LexisNexis, we have now moved far beyond our history of providing legal research and content. We're now focusing on helping professionals to automate their workflows, drive productivity, and relieve the burden of admin from them, freeing them up to do much higher value work. We'd like to thank the Law Society of SA once again for its partnership and for entrusting us with the research and insights reflected in the Legal Tech Report. To our attendees, you will see a short poll on screen now, and we'd like you to please take a moment to complete this, as it will help, as it's always helpful to us in delivering content that you would find valuable. A reminder also that if you have not yet viewed the State of the Legal Industry launch video discussing the key insights in legal tech in the Legal Tech Report, you can find it at the LexisNexis YouTube channel under the video title, The State of Legal Industry in South Africa. It features our very own Loni Ramalwa and Eunice Masipa of the Law Society of SA in conversation with Jeremy Maggs. A copy of the full Legal Tech Report can be downloaded from the LexisNexis website. Thank you once again for joining us this morning. You can look out for the recording of today's webinar and post-event communications from the LexisNexis via the email addresses you've registered with, as well as on our social media channels. From the Law Society of South Africa and LexisNexis, thank you and goodbye until our next State of the Legal Industry webinar. For updates, you can please sign up at www.lexisnexis.co.za/webinars. Thank you.